Hi everybody, meteorologist Matt Gray with another edition here of the Brainstorm on the 4 News Now YouTube channel. And we are giving you another update on El Nino. We have, for the last couple months, been talking about this, where we expect that we're going to see some rapid warming in the eastern Pacific. And when that happens, well, we see big changes in weather patterns. In the last 3 years, we've been in the opposite side of this ENSO cycle. La Nina, which is when those waters off the East Pacific there are very, very chilly. So that is what we are here for, because, well, it has a big impact on weather around the world, including us here in the inland Northwest. I've been showing you a version of this chart off and on for the past couple of months. Shows the percentages for each of these features here. Pretty much no chance for La Nina, or chance for neutral in the gray, and then El Nino phase in the red. And as we head into that, where we are now, kind of May, June, July time frame, you can see over 80% chance for El Nino to develop. By the time we get into the winter, it gets to over 90%. So that is a big freaking deal, because it's basically certain at this point here now as we enter the middle of May. Also some updates here, because the stronger that those water temperatures get, the more likely we'll see those El Nino impacts, which for us would be dry weather and warm weather during the winter months, and also during the fall months. Spring is usually fairly wet. Summer can often be even drier, just by a hair, than it would be during a regular year. So the odds here have increased a little bit with the overall increase for an El Nino itself, and particularly getting into this kind of moderate range at 80%. What that tells me is as we head into the winter, we probably should not be counting on much in the way of snow, snowpack, things of that nature, and probably won't have nearly as much snow as we saw this year. Now, we kind of have known that already, but certainly when you see these numbers pop up like this and that trend continues, certainly gives you a lot of confidence in the forecast in broad terms for the next, really about 9 months to a year, about how things are going to go. We'll get to this slide in just a moment, but I want to come back here because with this basically all but being a certainty, and the way things have played out here during the spring season, I am a little bit concerned as we go into fire season and as we head into the months beyond that, as well as we get our way closer to 2024. So let's take a look at this chart, and what this shows you is the rainfall that we've had in Spokane so far this year. We are still, even though we had some really good rain in the early part of May, we are still running pretty well below our average for this point of the year, and we have had that for most of the year. You know, a lot of our big snows and everything else, at least down in the valley areas, came in November and December, and so things have been more quiet more often than not, where kind of any rain or any snow didn't stick around for very long. And it's not just in Spokane. This has really been the case since January 1st across the entirety of the Pacific Northwest, where we've only had about anywhere between 50 and 75% or so of what we would normally see at this point in the year. Now, obviously, we can make that up with 1 or 2 good storms, but considering that we are expecting 90s in about a week from now, that is not something that I can go ahead and say that is all that likely. You know, maybe we see a pattern shift in June, but at least for the month of May, it looks like any kind of big, broad, sweeping rainfall, we're not going to see another one, kind of like the rain we saw about a week or 2 ago. And another sign that we could be seeing some really warm weather here in the months to come, besides that we're having 80s and 90s and really, really strong heat waves now here in the middle of May, is also ocean temperatures, where for now, really since the beginning of April, really since the beginning of March, ocean temperatures average worldwide are at the highest they have ever been on record. And basically what this means is you're kind of supercharging the El Nino factor here a little bit. And as water temperatures go, so does the atmosphere, and so does our weather patterns. So this, I do not think bodes well either. I think we could be in for a, at least worldwide, could be in for a very long and kind of hot summer season. And it does appear that we're kind of leaning that way here as well. My hope here, though, is that later on this spring we can get a little bit of rain to kind of counteract this and help get us through fire season, because certainly the snowpack not going to help out with that pretty much at all. And there is a trend here with El Nino that we often see, that El Nino is the warmest, kind of the strong El Ninos especially, are usually the warmest years worldwide out of the decade. So if you want to measure the impact of global warming at its worst, find an El Nino year like 1998, like 2015. We all know how bad 2015 was around here in the summertime. And that is, that's kind of a blueprint, unfortunately, for what we could see perhaps if we do end up with a moderate or strong El Nino this go around. So yeah, that's a little on the disconcerting side. And yeah, those temperatures already at this point in the year, I wish that it was not a sign perhaps of things to come, but I don't have a lot of confidence with that. And here's another reason why. Looking at tropicaltidbits.com and our climate forecast system. So this gives us kind of average conditions here for the upcoming months. This is June, and you can see right where all these fires are up in northern Canada, Alberta and BC. High pressure dominant as well, by and large. Maybe some storms, some small systems coming in from time to time. But right here over the northwest. July looks fairly similar, but you know, July, this is very typical for us. Same goes for August as well. Really, we're seeing quite a bit of high pressure stuck right over the northern Rockies, where we have, well, quite frankly, have had, considering how much snowpack there is to our neighbors to the south here in the west, it's probably the worst off for snowpack this year with just having an average one. So that is certainly something to monitor, as well, we're not going to have pretty much any snowpack left, I think, by the time we get to maybe even June in some areas, but definitely by July. And so things will be good and dried out as we get into August. Here is September. This is also something that's particularly worried, because this is a classic El Nino setup where September ends up being hot and dry for much longer than it usually would. And we already saw this a little bit last year, where we stayed hot and dry into October, and smoke stuck around as well. Particularly these anomalously orange colors, where it's much more high pressure, much more sunshine and heat than usual in Canada, where already there's wildfires breaking out anywhere. That is not a good sign for them, and may not be a good sign for our air quality either, since, well, basically we live right next door. October not looking spectacular either as we go into November as well. So this is where I get really concerned. And I've talked about this before in some of my other El Nino stories, where we could end up just kind of waiting for the rains of fall to come, and if we are in a particularly strong El Nino, they may not show up for a long time. So hopefully we can see something change in that regard, but until then, probably want to get used to these kinds of temperatures, because unless we get some really good storms in June, I think it's going to be a long and pretty toasty and probably drought-stricken summer. We'll see how things go. Cross your fingers. In the meantime, I'm meteorologist Matt Gray. Make sure you like and subscribe to the 4 News Now YouTube channel, and I'll see you next week for another edition of the Brainstorm.